time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
ScentLock Technologies,
Scent Blocker,
Rambo Bikes,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Limwalker Game Calls,
Stanislawski Releases,
Copper John Sights,
Easy Cut Outdoor Products,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Hunting Sense,
X-Stand Tree Stands,
Spot Shooters,
Gut Check Indicators,
and Packermax Cultipackers. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on GoodTalkRadio.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm the host, Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight with Dan DeFaw.
That's right.
We just got back from TAC. Doesn't that sound cool?
It does sound cool.
We were at TAC.
First thing we had to do was go to the TAC booth.
Yeah, we had to go to the TAC booth when we got there.
We had to figure out what TAC first was.
Right.
Because it wasn't making sense at the beginning.
Total Archery Challenge.
And there you go. That's what it means, folks. But we made it back from up there.
In one piece?
In one piece. It was pretty cool. Interesting.
For those of you who may not know what TAC is, or Total Archery Challenge, there's 12, is it 12 circuits? 12
I think there's a
sites on the circuit?
Yes.
12 destinations on the circuit, and this one was at Boyne Mountain, which is a ski hill, and we were accused of hunting on a hill, not a mountain, but in Michigan, they're mountains to us.
It was called
Boyne Mountain.
Boyne Mountain.
Yeah, so it is what it is.
It is, right?
So, but anyway, they have these different venues. A lot of them, most of them are at ski resorts in the summer. So we get to go and shoot targets. And when they say Total Archery Challenge, it is a challenge, and it's extreme. That's all I can say.
Yeah. You know what? We already got a question, and this is going to play right into it.
Okay.
From Derek Jetson. He says, what's the biggest advice you can give somebody preparing for deer season? I tell you what, go shoot the archery challenge.
Go shoot the Total Archery Challenge if it ever comes around to your area.
Right. If you can get to a shoot, it's great for the summertime.
Yep.
3D shoot, that'll get you practicing for your bow out there, and you can work on it during the summer. You can work on it depending on what bow shoot you go to. This one had shots up to, I think it was 100 plus yards.
110, 113, 111,
I think it was.
Something like that.
I heard somebody say that was 100 and something yards on one of the courses.
Yep.
But they had 4 courses.
Yep.
They had Mountain Ops.
Yep.
They had the Sitka. They had the Prime. And they had the Local.
In the Local, you think, okay, it's going to be easy. It's kind of like a local challenge. No. Up and down, up and down, up and down. From what we heard, we only shot Mountain Ops. We shot the first day on Friday. So.
Right, and you got to understand when they set this course up, they're setting it up around the mountain. Mm-hmm. So you kind of get an impression that it's not going to be flat.
It wasn't flat.
I think there was only a couple shots that maybe I would consider were on a flat side.
Right.
But you were shooting across maybe
a valley. Right.
So, but it was nice weather. And
but to answer your question, I guess for me, Derek, the thing that we noticed that got us, that is going to have us ready for deer season is, we've been preaching working out, staying heart healthy, going to the gym. And I just want to say this right up front. And if Danny and I had not been working out for the last 8 months, there's no way in Hades we would have been able to shoot this thing.
We would have been huffing and puffing.
We'd have been dead. It was extreme. It was uphills, downhills, and we did I think by the end of the day, I mean, and everybody's going to laugh and say only 500 feet. We had 500 feet of elevation change.
Right, we had 15,000 steps on Friday alone.
We're talking 20, 25 degree angles of the hills that we were running. Some of them were steeper than that we were actually climbing up to get to the next one. But I'm going to say being ready for your terrain is the key. And if you're a flatlander, and Derek, I know where you basically hunt down in Indiana. Even a flatlander, you need stamina. Number one, to get into your tree stand and out of your tree stand safely, have that energy, have that stamina. You don't want to be hoofing it and you're trudging out to your stand. You get there, you're huffing and puffing. Be ready for the terrain you're hunting I think is the biggest thing, because it's also going to play into shot execution.
Yep,
and I think that was a huge factor as well, is what we've been doing for the last 8 months.
Yep.
Climbing, hiking on this course. You'd walk up, you get down, you might climb uphill, retrieve an arrow, then you'd turn, you'd walk across the face of it, you get set up for the next shot, And instead of being winded and your muscles sore and your legs fatigued, you could actually stand, look at where your target is, range your target, draw, aim, and be steady, whether it's downhill or uphill, and shoot.
Yep.
And shoot successfully. So
Right, exactly. And Billy Hoffman says the red stag was 112. That's what it was. It was the red stag. I remember.
Okay.
And it was pretty funny.
Billy, did you shoot? Did you go up?
Billy, did you go?
And if you did, shame on you for not contacting us.
Yeah, Billy.
So-
Courtney, you guys shoot compound or crossbow? Mike, well, we do. I shoot.
We shoot both, but this was there was no crossbows there.
Right.
This was compound, recurve, and today we saw guys with longbows.
Longbows.
Yes.
Flinging arrows, as they like to say they were
Right.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, typically, Courtney, we shoot compounds. We do shoot crossbows. For me, I shoot a crossbow when it gets cold.
But I walked up to those two guys today with the longbows. I'm like, guys, I just got to tell you, kudos to you. You're taking this challenge, this Total Archery challenge. You're going on the mountain with longbows, and they were there all 3 days.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then they were kind of laughing about it because next week they're going to another shoot, which is a longbow shoot.
Right.
And they said the target's going to be way closer.
Right, and it's going to feel like a slam dunk for them. So.
Right, exactly. So, but no, it was definitely a challenge.
I guess one other thing I would like to say to you, Derek, extend your effective range. Don't be afraid to step back and start shooting longer distances, because when you start shooting longer distances, when you get that deer and he's a 20 or 30 yard, it seems like a slam dunk. And I know you shoot competitively, and I don't know what your effective range is, but let's say you're comfortable at taking a shot at an animal at 40 or 50 yards. But if you're shooting 75, 80, 100 yards, that makes that other distance seem like a slam dunk.
And I tell you what, it's
practice.
It's practice,
yep.
and it's practicing at every distance, and it's also practicing the known distance and also the unknown distance. Mm-hmm. And get you sighted in, and then test yourselves and just kind of walk around and see if you can pull off different shots, what you think they might be.
Yeah.
And what I found out this year, what typically I probably wouldn't have been so okay with, is I kind of went almost in like really blind.
Okay.
I set my bow up. I set it for 20 and a little bit of 30, but that was it. So we went over to the practice range, right?
Yeah. Well,
but we'll get into that. But
I tell you what, let's just start with the venue. I mean,
first, Billy Hoffman says I did not go. He was had weddings to do all weekend.
Okay.
And Courtney is a crossbower. Okay.
Right on. So here's the venue. It's what we call Vendors Row, I guess. What really blew me away when we first got there, I was really taken back by the venue and the way it was presented. It was spectacular.
It was set up. You could tell that they've set this up before.
Yeah.
Right.
It was beautiful. I mean, the way that it was laid out. It was simply breathtaking, and we had beautiful weather as well.
Right, and you had vendors basically down the row on both sides. Basically, at one end in the distance, you can see the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation trailer, and on the other end was the Sitka gear tent, which was just in front of the ski lift.
Yep.
So,
and yes, being on a ski lift,
yes.
that's the way you made your way up. But
right.
The reason we were there for the weekend is we were working the Rambo booth, and that was kind of our tent for the weekend, right there with the bikes and everything, hanging out, showing the product to people. And we got there first day, got checked in at the TAC booth.
We did,
and
we met Monica and Sean.
Got over to our booth and figured out what we had to do, and then at that point we said, okay, we had a knock time. It's called knock time, like a tea time.
Yep.
And 1 o'clock was our knock time, and so we went back out to the Jeep, got our clothes, got changed, got the bows, got ready, and we proceeded to the range, which Danny was talking about, where he had to do a little bit of practicing. That's the practice range.
Right. And they had anything set up, I think it was from 20 to, I think the buffalo was 100. It
was 100. And they had a novelty shoot at 110 yards.
111 was the caribou. So on the left side of the practice range, they were having a novelty shoot. They had a laying down ram set up at 84 3 yards. Mm-hmm. And if you paid some money, you got a shot. And if you perfectly scored
the 12
ring, you got a free Sitka gear
outfit
sent right to your home. And then a little bit further back at 111 was the caribou, and you paid some money, got to shoot, you put it in the ring, you get entered into the drawing, which they're going to have a Total Archery Challenge truck that you're going to be able to
Was decked out.
Was decked out and ready to win.
Yep.
So that was a novelty shoot. We didn't try that. So we got on the practice range, and basically you walked up, and there was a line of people, and you started flinging arrows, which was kind of cool. And you kind of get the gist of the terrain we're looking at as we're already starting to look uphill.
Well, the practice range was set at, they said 10 degree. It was a 10-degree incline, and this is at the base of the hill. So, Danny, I think, if I remember right, you were aiming at the buck with his head down there.
Yeah, I think it was. And that was at...
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was the one back. I think you're aiming more at that buck in the back, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. My arrow was going uphill.
You're right. And here's another photo that kind of gives you a little more realistic view of what we were looking at. There's everybody going up range and checking their targets there, pulling arrows and everything. So it was like I said, the whole thing, it was straight uphill.
Yeah, it was really cool. And you'd get a line of people who had their knock times. They were off and running, and then you'd get a rush that they'd come up, they'd all practice, then they'd head for the ski lift, go to the top of the hill, and then you went on your 4 courses. And then today we had a little special viewing of Krishner and Dan Yasa shooting their bows. Now you have to understand they started off at their practice range
At 100
yards. And
at 100 yards.
That's all they practiced was they shot a few times and it was 100. I think Dan did shoot at something less than, but these get 2 guys.
That was their warm up.
That was their warm up, and it was pretty funny. But when you watch these guys shoot, you're always learning. And first thing, they were listening to them talk to each other. They were talking to each other about the wind, the elevation, and what the wind was doing. Was it cutting? Was it? And we were kind of watching. They were watching. I think there was a total of 4 flags.
Yeah.
That we could see up the right side of the mountain, and like the flag closest to us where we were standing was barely moving, and then the 2 in the middle kind of was moving more sturdily, and the one at the top wasn't moving as much.
It was really odd. At one point I looked, the one on the bottom's flapping, the 2 in the middle weren't moving at all, and then the one at the top was flapping. And we started asking those questions, like, okay, you talk about wind currents. And if you're hunting and shooting across a valley, like what we had said we had to do on the first day, thermoclines you got to worry about. You got to worry about, you're uphill, you're downhill, and which way the wind's blowing. And it's like when we went out and shot, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
it didn't even enter my mind.
And Chris said he learned this from actually flying remote control airplanes. He says, don't look at the trees, look at the grass.
Right.
If the grass is moving, which takes more wind to move,
then leaves.
Yes. So got a little schooled. It was fun watching these 2 guys shoot and other people watching. When Chris walked up and said, so are we just going to start at the 100-yard practice? There's a couple guys right to their immediate right that kind of did a double take, and they looked at him, and it is what it is, but it's fun. It's all fun.
It's all good.
It was fun. It was a good time. And I tell you what, this archery challenge gives you a very realistic, if you want to go elk hunting, you want to go out west.
Absolutely.
This is kind of showing you, what you're going to be trudging through.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a break. We come back. Let's get into the actual shoot, how we got up the hill, and then when we got on the course. So I tell you what, we're going to step outside. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation about the tack.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show, talking about the Total Archery Challenge. Danny, we were at a ski hill, so what better way to get up the hill than to get in line and get on a chairlift?
They had wristbands. They had your knock time on it. And
we tried to get in early, and they wouldn't let us.
Well, and we were also courteous and said, yep, we understand. And we were only 10 minutes early. It was no big deal. But you got in line, and you went for a little ski ride.
Yep. Had to keep your ski tips up when you come off the...
That's right. And you know what?
The approach there.
In the summertime, ski tips equal boots.
That's right.
Some people just don't understand that, Krishner, about keeping your ski tips up.
That's right.
But anyways, it was a very nice ride to the top. And when we got to the top, you kind of had a great view of looking back down.
Yeah, we started out down at the bottom of that.
Right. So you got to the top of the hill.
So that gives you an idea of the elevation change.
There was 3 courses that you could go to from this point. There was one course that was actually off-site that you jumped on a shuttle and they ran you over to it. That was the Sitka one. Mm-hmm. So there we are. Oh, look at that. Look how happy we are. We're excited.
Yep.
We're about to go
ready to
shoot
attack
the mountain ops.
So when we walked up to the first target, Dan, what was going through your mind at that point? I mean, what was your first thought?
Well, first of all, I was like, okay.
Where's the target?
Well, first of all, yeah. Where's the target? Because we're walking, and it's like, okay. Oh, then you saw the sign that says Mountain Ops Start. I'm like, okay. Well, then, we met the president of Flint Bowman's there.
Yep.
Down on Vendor Row. And he kind of gave us a heads up as to, you know what, you'll be on Mountain Ops, so look for pink ribbon, and that'll help you.
Yep.
Orange cones gives you the starting point. That's where you shoot from. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. So we're walking, and finally we see an orange cone. And we see guys there already. So I was like, okay, there's number 1. So we get up. You having a hard time there, bud?
Did you tighten my coffee down?
I didn't do anything to your coffee.
Man, this thing is like seized up. We're going to have to wait for a break before I get more coffee.
So we get to our first target. Our first target was it the 60-yarder?
It was 45, 50 yards.
Okay.
45, 50 yards, I think.
It was 45 yards. And I tell you what, this is actually an up-close picture of the leopard that you can see. Because
you were standing
at right next to it, you could see it. But when you stepped back to the orange cone, it was within the leaves, and you could just barely see it. And I was having a hard time picking it out. And so it was like, Mike, give me your binoculars. Mine were in the truck. And it was like, wow. And basically, it was what we were running into was the shadows. So we were looking into the shadow of the woods, and now all of a sudden, we had to find a spot.
Yep.
2 guys in front of us were they went and shot, and it was kind of entertaining. Is when you shot, you listen. You either listen for foam, you listen for dirt, or you listen for a tree.
Yep.
And it was just at one point, it's like, where do you go? So right from there, we shot at our first target, and then we started our 25 target adventure.
Yeah, it was an adventure, you know. And we're like, okay, we got through that one, and I placed a halfway decent shot on this thing. And then we went to our second target. Tell me where the buck is in that.
Right?
That was our window. I mean, we know where it's at, but that's what you kind of walked up to try to find your next target. And this was about a 50 or 55 yard shot downhill.
Exactly.
Straight, almost. I mean, this was what, 20-something degree angle?
It was, yes, it was 20-something because the next one was, yes, it was a 20-degree downhill shot. And literally, because of the shadows, you were shooting into the darkness.
Yeah, there's Danny.
Right.
Shooting into the abyss, so to speak. And
Matt Howard, we're going to tell you how many arrows we donated here in a little bit. So this was our first shot at our second target. Mike went first, and then I went first. He went second. So we rotated, and then finally you had to fall down the hill. Basically, just kind of what started happening is you started seeing where people were going before you, and it started creating a trail.
You could figure out where to go to.
Right. So there it was. There was the buck. Mike and I both hit it.
Dan's low, and I'm below him. I just caught foam.
Right. So we kind of scored. We really didn't score too hard.
No.
We were having fun.
It was just about more. And that's the thing is nobody really kept score. The way when we came back, everybody, said, how'd you shoot? Oh, okay. And everybody asked, well, how many arrows did you lose?
Right.
And that was the scoring.
As a matter of fact, we asked the owner, Sean, about that. Mm-hmm. We were getting ready to go up on the lift. He says, well, we really don't do anything about scoring. We just provide a card because some guys like to keep a score. So it's really up to you.
Right.
So we just said, okay, that's fine. But you're right. It really comes down to how many arrows did you donate to the landscape, like Matt Howard says.
Yep.
And I tell you what, you'll understand this because we're going to show you a bucket here in a little bit that you'll see how many people donated, and that wasn't just the only bucket around. So there we were on our way. We're 2 targets into our fun.
And here comes number 3. And these are the 2 guys that you see walking up the hill here, if you can see them there. This is target 3, and the one guy was from Minnesota, and the other guy, he calls himself Minnesota Flatlander.
Right.
And the other guy was actually not too far away.
From Clare.
From Clare, Michigan. There.
Cool story. They met on on the internet.
On an archery page.
And they said, hey, you want to do this shoot? So he drove over from Minnesota. They met at the hotel, and they shot all 3 days together.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and we kind of got to know them along the way, and actually all 3 days we stopped and talked to each other.
Right. So so at this one that you see here, this is when the fun started, because we were checking with the rangefinder, and it was giving us our angle. And we said, oh, yeah, by the way, this is 21 degrees. And they started walking up this hill. And we're yelling at each other. He says, well, how's that 21 degrees feeling?
Right. Yeah, they were hoofing it, and they were feeling it. And it's a lot further up that hill. And this one was what? Was this about a 40-yard?
This was 40, yeah. This was on this course, there wasn't anything less than 36 yards. I think there was 2 targets at 36, 35.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Right. So,
and the rest were mainly 50 and above.
50 out to 84, I think, was the longest one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then basically you watched their path that people had started creating, getting up to this target. Another one that you had to sit there and go, okay, where is it? So I shot first, and then Mike shot, and then we made the climb to get up there.
Well, you knew that you shot over its back.
You could tell it was I killed something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't foam.
Yeah, it was a tree.
Right. And you shot, and it hit foam. And we're like, oh, cool, okay.
So here's the result. I almost tubed Danny's arrow. I catch just enough foam to slow my arrow down.
Right.
And my arrow is resting on his fletching.
Yes. and mine, this is where I lost one arrow, and Mike got lucky. Another a quarter higher, he would have been in the tree with me.
Right. But I almost tubed his arrow, so
right.
That was pretty good.
So that was pretty cool.
And then the next target, you walk across the face of the hill, and then you're shooting downhill 55 yards at a baby goat. I say baby because this thing was little.
It was a little goat, and we're shooting downhill 55 yards.
And we both caught some pretty good shots there.
And you know what? Like we said, it's now we're hunting foam.
Yeah.
Because this was getting
ridiculous,
crazy. It was crazy fun, and
but it gets better,
right?
The next, or not the next target, but my favorite one was a 50-yard shot at Mr. Bunny Ears.
So you walk up, you find the orange cone, and now you're looking for the target, and we're looking for the target.
Where is it?
Oh, it's under the tree over there, and you're looking,
and it's a rabbit,
at 50 yards. Like, oh, great. So I missed. I went short, and my arrow was in the dirt, and Mike caught foam. So no arrows lost.
Somebody's arrow's in the dirt right there underneath mine too. So
that might have been mine.
And a little bit later on, this is where it really started to get a little crazy. So there's a little tiny javelina that we were well, I don't know, it would be a little bigger than a javelina, and it was a 66-yard shot. And it's between 2 trees, and that gap looks a lot wider right there because we're shooting on an angle. When you're looking at it, the window was about as big as the vitals.
Yep, that window was
8 inches, 10 inches,
maybe.
And I shot first. I caught the tree on the left, and then Danny shot and caught the tree on the right.
Yes, we did it perfectly. We killed each tree on each side.
So here's a side view of it. You see both our arrows there.
Yep.
You know,
but we were able to get our arrows back out of the tree. No damage done to the arrows.
That's right. Still nothing lost.
Right.
And actually, what was funny is we got to look at it, and right behind the little pig, everybody's busted arrows.
This
is piling up.
This was not the only target that had this decimation at the bottom of in the area.
So it was a hoot. But
it was a blast.
You know, and we got down to the bottom of the hill, like Danny was talking about, and here was a culmination of busted arrows and found arrows.
So what they did is they had these buckets. They had the buckets up on the practice range where people were losing their arrows in the hill, and people were finding them. Mm-hmm. They'd bring them to this bucket, throw them in there. And then this one was right by the registration, and every so often you'd see a guy run up with his handful of arrows and throw them in there.
Yeah, and I kept going back to the bucket every now and then, seeing if I could find anything that had any semblance of what mine looked like. I lost one.
And I busted one.
And you broke one.
Right.
And I would have found my arrow. There's no doubt I would have found my arrow had I had time to look.
Yeah, we were...
It buried up in sand.
It buried
in leaves. And
we had people behind us. And
strangely, it was a 55-yard shot on a doe coming out of a line of trees, but it was across a valley. It had a big drop in it. And I'm not making any excuses for what happened. I just flat out dropped my shoulder on the shot. But, you know, then you go back and you start listening to what Chris was talking about with the wind and everything and the way the wind moves across these mountains. And you wonder if there was a a current coming through that affected any of those shots.
Oh, absolutely. There was wind. There was because as we got into the openings, we had the heat thermals, and there was wind. One of the coolest shots was that bison one that was actually, I think it was 50 yards again, but that was like shooting across the meadow, and that was like reality.
So, and looking right now, before we take a break here in a second, we're looking at our poll right now. The sweeping majority of you would love to shoot downhill versus uphill, and I completely 100% agree with that.
And you're right, Matt Howard. That's a good day when we only lose one arrow each.
Yeah, I was happy with the way I shot. Did I score a lot? No. I mean, I did hit. I didn't hit a center ring, but I did hit 2 of the second ring, and I hit 2 or 3 of the next ring.
Yep.
And the rest was body shots.
Right. And I wasn't really sighted in for that distance. So actually we actually walked up to one that was 84 yards. We looked at each other and said, Nope. So we walked in, and I think we shot at 60.
Yeah. Yep.
And called it good. Towards the end, we got with another couple, and the 3 of us would shoot, and then she would move in to within 40 yards, I think was what she was doing.
Yep.
And there was a couple times Mike and I said, yeah, you know what? We'll shoot with you and shoot 40 and call it a day.
Yep.
But talk about a total archery challenge. Absolutely.
It was great.
Big shout out to Kelly at Badass Gear and Shops for having the tent for Rambo. That's who
absolutely.
We met her. She's from Utah. Big shout out to her. She helped us. She got us, talking with her. Brought, so she was. Today we talked to her, and she was ecstatic that we helped out. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here maybe in the next segment if we got time. If depending on when we get our call for Ken.
We're ready to go on that, by the way.
Oh, we are. Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what. Let's run this segment just a touch longer because you got some photos here you want to show real quick.
Right. And so shout out to Monica and Sean, the owners of the Total Archery Challenge.
Yep.
For meeting them.
Yep.
That was kind of cool.
And these are some friends of yours.
I had a couple guys come up from work. Right here we got on the right hand side we got Larry, and on the left we got Ron. In the middle is Larry's daughter Leah, and they went up. They started off on the local, and I don't remember what the second one is. They went and did. They went up and did another one.
Either the prime or the second. I guess.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was prime. And so here one of the targets was.
Let's go back to that one.
One of the targets was Sasquatch himself.
Yeah, we didn't see that one.
No, we didn't. So it was kind of cool. And then, as usual, when you get to the top of the mountain, there they are.
You got to take a picture.
Right. You got to be on top of the world. So that was kind of cool. I am sure we'll have discussion tomorrow at work.
But I tell you what, though, you mentioned Kelly from Badass Archery Products. Archery Gear. I don't have the card in front of me here exactly to remember the exact name of it, and we'll get that later. But we hung around Rambo booth. We got to show the products. We got to take them out on the bikes. Danny's holding court here with three potential customers.
What we learned was we had 3 bikes sitting in the booth, and we're like, man, if we ride these things, let's try riding them. Mm-hmm. So we rode them, and we rode them up to the practice area and rode them around there. And then that's when it really started to bring people over and start asking questions.
Yep.
And so we'd talk with them. We'd say, hey, come back to the booth after your shoot, try them out. We ended up having about 10 people actually ride it.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool. We took some other photos over having the Rambo bike up by the practice area.
Yep. And couldn't get you off of them.
Well, I was there to promote the product.
This is the first time you really got a lot of use on them.
This was the first time I actually got to use them. And first thing I noticed is the 1000 is probably going to be too tall for me. So I was riding the 750.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool.
What'd you think?
The cool factor is awesome. It'll be fun to take it up to the cabin and use it on the roads up there. I liked it for the fact of it's just cool. You'll be pedaling and all of a sudden you hit the button and away you go.
Every time anybody came back from a ride, they came back and I said, "Oh, you got it. You got the Rambo smile." They were grinning from ear to ear and like, "This is cool."
And we came up with a saying, why would you pedal ever again?
Exactly.
And it was funny because yesterday and today, we had a lady stop by. Actually, she was already test driving it when we met her. Mm-hmm. And she was actually attending a wedding there. And she was from the UP. And she said, wow, this is really cool. Well, we said, well, you got to come back and test drive it. She was test driving it, but she wouldn't go over 2 because she didn't want to hurt herself for the wedding.
Right.
So from there, she goes, well, I'm going to try to bring my husband back. So they actually came back today, and the husband didn't drive it, but one of their friends who really isn't into mountain biking did it. And you're right, he had the smile.
He had the Rambo smile.
It was pretty funny, and it was that grin of. But she had the thought of using it to run to the store and back.
Yep, go uptown.
Right.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
And that was the thing we told everybody. There's so many uses for these things. It's just unbelievable what you it's just whatever you can think of, truthfully. So, well, I'll tell you what. You said Ken's ready?
Ken's ready.
All right, so let's take a break. We come back. We're going to talk a little bit of fishing now. So we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Welcome back. Third segment of the show. And in the commercial break, we've got a phone call in, and we got Ken Scicluna on.
Right, exactly. And tell you what, you've had a week.
Oh, did I ever? I sure did.
Last week we talked to you, and you're going to start fishing tournaments. We brought you, we introduced you to everybody, and it sounds like you had a week almost like on a ski hill. But you kind of went backwards. You started at the bottom and you went to the top.
Yes, I did. And, it's just the ups and downs of tournament bass fishing. And every year I go through this more than once sometimes. And I have to learn to keep an even keel. Don't get too high when it's good and don't get too low when it's bad. And, I was in a really bad slump that after last week's live stream, we had that tournament on Whitmore and I made that post and we didn't do good. Those 2 bad tournaments in a row. And then, that's just fishing. And then what do you know, 2 days later, we go out to Pontiac Lake with my buddy Dom and we get it done and get the win on a pretty high pressured lake with a lot of good fishermen that fish it all the time. Got the win. And then yesterday, had a pretty good day. Did not place in the money, but one big bass. I caught a limit fishing solo. I made some good adjustments. So just the ups and downs of bass fishing, it's incredible.
So let's go back to Tuesday when you were slumping.
Yes.
What were you thinking? Because you're fishing Tuesday knowing you're going to fish Thursday.
Yep.
And Saturday. And here you are slumping on Tuesday. What was your thinking?
I was thinking, tell you the truth, I was thinking, I'm like, here we go. I'm with the Up North Journal on the page. I'm going to have to start out by posting bad news. They're going to say, who is this guy? He's no good. And but I honestly, I knew who I was fishing with Thursday. I felt good about Thursday. But I was, Tuesday wasn't too bad. I really made it a point. I got to stay positive the whole night, no matter what. And I did that. I mean, I wasn't glad at the outcome, but I told myself if I stay positive tonight, it's going to be a victory for me. And I did that. I never got down and out. I fished really hard, focused on every cast. And I knew, portage chain, if I do have to consider a lake my home body of water, the portage chain of lakes, I'd consider that. So I always have a few tricks up my sleeve out there. And so I felt good moving forward.
That's awesome. Now, tell us a little bit about the guy you were fishing with here, when you guys won here. I got a picture up here. You guys got the fish in your hands.
That's my good friend, Dom Gazzardo. I've been fishing with him for almost 20 years. He is really the one that got me into tournament bass fishing. He actually got me into turkey hunting, ice fishing. I mean, this guy, his main mission in life is sometimes it seems is getting people into the outdoors. And I've been fishing with him a long time. He lives out that way. He fishes Pontiac Lake a lot. And when I get a call from him saying, hey, you need to come out tonight, I'm on him. I usually try my best to make the time because when he says something like that, he means it. And he was definitely on the fish. And we had a lot of fun catching him all night on swim jigs and real thick grass. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was exactly what the doctor ordered. Night on the water with a good friend. I always tell him he's my fishing therapist. And he kind of talked me off the ledge, and we were catching fish, and we was all good.
Kept you from jumping in.
How many boats How many boats were with you on that tournament on Thursday?
I think 10.
Now,
I want to say 10.
Now, when you're running, and that was what lake was that?
Pontiac Lake.
So now, when you're running Pontiac Lake and you're running in a tournament, How many other boats do you encounter from the public? Like, I know, like, it's a public lake, so and it's a Thursday night. It's warm. It's beautiful.
In Waterford, yeah.
Yeah. Did you what? Getting in, getting out. You're fishing. You got boats zipping by you. What's that like?
Well, I'll say, we were lucky. Usually the launch around those lakes can be a mess. But thankfully, this was a private launch that this guy's been running. The guy, he's 90 years old. He's been running the same tournament there for like 30 years or something.
Holy cow.
On Thursday night, yeah. And so the launch wasn't bad. But, yeah, I mean, out on public water, yeah, you get I get the best word is, you do have some ignorant people that don't understand common courtesy. Like that's the path they go on their after dinner pontoon ride every night. And it doesn't matter if you're fishing there or not, like that's the way they go, and they will come by you at 20 yards. And you've got the wake boats and, everything else and other fishermen, but usually the other fishermen are the most courteous. I mean, it's just the recreational boaters. Some of them are not so courteous, but that's just part of the game. And after a while, you just get used to it. You spend enough time on the water, you come to expect it.
Right. Now, were you fishing close to shore, along the shores, or were you fishing deeper water?
We were probably, I want to say, we were definitely in deeper water for the lake. We were probably 200 to 300 yards offshore.
Oh, okay.
Me and Dom fish very similar. I mean, almost everything I've learned about fishing, I've learned from him. And so he's an offshore deep water fisherman, and that's what I like to do. That's my comfort zone. So we were both in our happy place. Yep.
Well, that's awesome. And, well, I just wondered if what reason why I asked that question is I wondered when you fish closer to docks and you're tossing your lure towards these docks, have you had anybody get mad at you?
I haven't, and docks are a great deal. I mean, there are guys that I fish against that are really good with docks, and that's a great pattern if you're good at it. I'm just not. But I've had a few people say, "Hey, can you not fish my dock?" And if they ask real nice like that, I'm usually, "Hey, no problem. Your lawn looks great. See you later. Have a nice night." And but I've had some people snap at me. We have a buddy. I'm more of an acquaintance. This guy's really good. That's all he does is fish docks. And Woodland Lake in Brighton, somebody shot paintball gun at him
wow.
for fishing their docks. And it's a touchy situation. Most people are pretty cool as long as you're not putting hooks in their pontoon boat covers and dinging their boat and stuff like that, and which I don't. And but I've heard some pretty wild stories about people getting yelled at on docks.
I just wondered about that because I have heard of it happening, and especially when you got these tournaments out there that these guys are zipping around to get to these spots, and all of a sudden here you are tossing at somebody's dock,
and you get yelled at.
Getting yelled at. But, the thing you got to remember, most of the guys in these tournaments that are fishing docks are very good at it. And most of the time, they're throwing a weedless jig or a weedless, soft-bodied frog. There's no way they can hook anything. It's not like they're throwing a big old treble hook crankbait under the dock. So most of the guys at fish docks are pretty good and not much to worry about. But, those dock owners have probably had a lot of bad experiences over the years. And
right,
but you run into it, but it is public water, and they bought a house on a public lake, and we can still fish there.
Well,
I try to keep courteous.
That's the rule, right? You bought on a public lake, so now you get to deal with the public. It's just like these public lakes that are open to bow fishing.
Yep.
Yes.
And you got these guys coming through with their lights,
getting yelled at.
Yep, and all of a sudden DNR shows up or the sheriff shows up, and you're like, "Look, I'm on a public lake bow fishing, and I'm legal."
Yeah, we've been checked. Same thing.
So, was Thursday night? You won. What was the lure bait of choice that was bringing you the winning fish?
We were throwing swim jigs. I showed you a jig last Sunday, and that's a jig you kind of cast out there and drag back or hop around. But these jigs, we are fishing. They're made to. You're actually actively reeling it back in, almost like a crankbait. But they were swim jigs. My buddy was throwing a jig. They're more slender profile. The head is kind of made to come through grass. My buddy was throwing one. He had a swim bait trailer, because every jig you put a trailer on. He had a swim bait with a paddle tail trailer. I had a Rage Craw, Strike King Rage Craw trailer, and both have flapping action. And basically what we were doing, we were in 10 to 12 foot of water, and there was these big stalks of milfoil, Eurasian milfoil, mixed with some other stuff. And boy, I hope he doesn't kill me for giving away the juice. But there were these.
Well, there's one thing
stock
about giving it away, but there's actually another way. Is you got to make it work.
Exactly, and that's what I've never had someone give me a piece of. I've never been able to go on advice and catch somebody else's fish. So, but we were in 10 to 12 foot of water, big stalks of milfoil with some cabbage mix in there. And basically what I was doing, he was fishing a little bit different, but I'd cast that jig way out there. I'd let it fall all the way to the bottom, and I would just start reeling it back. And once I stopped feeling the grass, I'd let the jig fall right back down to the bottom, and I'd slowly start reeling it back in. And when I'm fishing that technique, this sounds a little weird, but in my mind, if I can visualize what that jig is doing in the grass, that's when I'm getting bit, because I'm constantly trying to visualize what my lure is doing down there in my head. And I could just visualize it getting caught in the grass, popping out. And a lot of times when you pop out of that grass is when you get bit. And it just kind of gives it that erratic action where they can't help themselves but to eat it. And I just, I was just slow rolling it through the grass, popping it out of the grass, and they were just hammering. They were just hammering it. And it was great. I mean, we caught a bunch of fish. We caught good fish. And it's just, that swim jig bite is unbelievable when it's on.
That's awesome. And that was over by 9 o'clock, 9:30?
This one actually was a cool tournament. They go 5:30 to 9:30.
Oh, okay.
So it's not your typical 3-hour event. It's a 4-hour event. And so we had all the time in the world to catch fish, and it was fun.
But, earlier in the week, it was probably after, I think it was after Tuesday when you kind of got beat up a little bit. And I know you had a little bit of an attitude. I remember you posted, I'm going to put this picture up. You got the fishing rod out of the back of your truck, and you said, you got this lure, and you said, I'm going to throw it in front of a fish's mouth, and I'm going to make him eat it.
I'm going to make him eat it.
Yeah.
It's, it's a mentality, I'm just trying to get that hard-nosed mentality. Like, all right, I'm struggling. This is how I like to fish with these baits, and I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna put this bait right in front of their face, and I'm gonna make them eat it.
Well, attitude has got to play huge into that. Your success or your failure at it. Just much like what Danny and I mean, we went in with a good attitude this weekend on the mountain to shoot, and when you've got a good attitude, you perform better, I think.
I was totally going in with no stress.
Right.
It was like, I'm going to fling arrows into the woods, it's going to go bad, that's fine.
But Ken, you were like, I'm going to cram this down his throat.
Yeah, I did. But, and it's, you hit the nail on the head right there. You said you went in with no stress. Thursday night, I went in with no stress. To me, that was just going fishing with a longtime friend of mine, and I knew it was going to be a good night no matter what. It was a tournament, don't get me wrong. We wanted to win and be competitive, but I had confidence because I knew Don was on the fish. I mean, that was his fish. I had nothing to do with finding those fish. I just caught them. But I knew it was going to be a low stress night, don't matter what, because Dom is a really positive guy anyway. He's a really mentally tough guy. And so I went into that night with no stress, and boy, it just built my confidence right back up. And the mental game, just like with anything, like you said, it's so important, especially in bass fishing. You have to have a good attitude. You have to stay calm, and it's mental. I mean, even the pros will tell you anyone can go out and learn how to throw these baits. Okay, anyone can learn how to throw a jig, a drop shot, a crankbait. You can do that. There's enough information on YouTube where you can learn how to do it. Most of it, it's all mental. It's 80% mental. Just like what they say with fitness. It's 80% diet, 20% in the gym. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with fishing or hunting or anything.
You're right, and you don't want to be that raging lunatic fisherman standing on your boat screaming your bloody head off at people.
Yeah, no,
that doesn't go over well. I think. I'm just
it doesn't. Especially in the tournament scene, it takes a long time to build a good reputation, but you can lose it in 2 minutes.
Right,
and it's
exactly.
real hard. It's real hard to get back.
Well, this weekend where Danny and I were at.
Yeah,
there was 1,400 people up there at this tournament, this shoot. It wasn't a tournament, but this shoot. did you see anybody that didn't have a smile on their face or laughing or having a good time?
Right.
And then that's exactly right. Whether you're out on the water or like us at the challenge, there was 1,400 people, which was a sellout, and then they actually took on some walk-ons. But yeah, it was like when they came off the course or whatever, and you asked them how they did, there wasn't a scoring, so they were just talking how many arrows you lost.
Right.
But it was like, oh well,
yeah.
And those guys shooting the longbow, they were like, we just started flinging arrows, and that's when we started breaking them. But that was it.
It's all about the fun factor.
And like Ken here, Thursday he went out with that open attitude. I'm just going to go fish with my buddy. And bam, they end up winning. They get off the water. They take a great picture of holding some fish. And you know what? He looks like your brother, if you had one. I swear.
Yeah, I hear we get that a lot. Yeah.
I looked at that and I went, my Lord, they're related.
Right.
A couple of Italian guys.
Right, exactly. So
it was great.
That's awesome.
Well, look at that photo in the background. What a sunset, too. And that was the thing that I noticed this weekend. You talk about attitudes. I think the weather has finally unleashed here in Michigan. We finally got a good dry stretch. We had some beautiful sunsets. We had some clear skies, and I think everybody just got outside and just had a ball. Finally.
Yeah. It was a beautiful night, and Saturday was a beautiful day, and it was going. I just want to touch on that attitude thing one more time. It's not that I'm just very competitive. I let my emotions get the best of me sometimes, and I try to keep it in check. And it's not that I'm a sore loser or anything like that, but you want to do well. I get mad at myself, and it's not me versus the other guys. It's me versus the fish, and I got to work on that.
Right,
exactly. I understand. Ask Danny about the third or fourth week inside the indoor archery tournament.
You know what? Let's
leagues.
Let's talk about that in our next segment.
All right,
and then we can talk about Ken's Saturday.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to step outside real quick. We're going to take our last break. We come back. We'll talk about the weekend and we'll wrap up the show. We'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back.
Last segment of the
fourth
show.
segment. That's right.
And you know what? We're talking about attitude. And before we talk about Mike's attitude on archery, so Ken, you're coming off a victory on Thursday night. You're riding the wave of highness, and now you got to do a single tournament on Saturday.
Yeah.
Is that a mental change game going in?
Yeah, it is. And I just like you said, coming off that win, I was trying not to get too high because, I don't want to get too low either when it's bad. So I was trying to keep it even keeled. I always get excited for some reason when I fish a tournament solo. It's not, I like fishing with other guys, but over the past few years, I really like fishing 8-hour tournaments by myself because I do have a different attitude. It's less stress. I feel like there's just not as much pressure on me because I'm going up against teams. And I don't know what it is or why it is, but I just tend to make better decisions. I stay calm. I don't get upset ever. I don't remember one time where I've ever spun out. Maybe one time when I first started tournament fishing, my second tournament ever. But since then, I really stay calm. It's a whole different attitude for me. You have more time to figure it out, and I've really come to like fishing 8-hour events alone.
Okay, I'm gonna go on something about your attitude here, and like you said, does having a child help you learn about this? Because I know I had we've all had kids here, and we had them at your age where you got them now, and it's like you learn. It's like you want to go off the handle, but you can't.
Yes, and my lovely wife has really checked me a few times because, I was raised, you just got yelled at, you know what I mean? So that's what I was used to, yelled at and beat. And
right?
Obviously we don't beat our child, but I have a little bit of a temper. He's a 2.5-year-old boy. He's super rowdy. He destroys everything in his path. So I have learned with the help of my wife to just stay calm and just talk to him instead of hollering at him. So that actually has translated a little bit, I think. Having a kid has changed everything. I've learned to appreciate my time in the water and in the woods a lot more, and it's calmed me down a lot, actually.
You know,
kids
and
will do that.
And kids will do that. You're right, absolutely right. And I think you're right, Ken. And you know, you're now transforming that into your hunting game and your fishing game.
Yeah.
And at what point did you pull the biggest fish in? Was it right off the bat, middle, or end of the tournament?
No, it was pretty much right off the bat. So I'm coming up the chain of lakes, and I run into a buddy, and he goes, "I'm out of gas, man." And I go, and it would be a very long trolling motor back through the chain of lakes where he was. He was almost to the end, Hazuki Lake. And I'm like, oh, man, you know, and I know I could get him gas easily. And I would like to think that if I was out of gas and someone could get me some gas easily, even in a tournament, they'd do it for me. So sure enough, I call my dad, get my buddy gas, I bring it to him. But first, he's like, go get your morning bites, go fishing. I'll just hang out in the river and fish. So I run out there to my spot. I get to my first spot, no grass. It's where it's usually matted to the top. There is not one blade of grass anywhere. So I'm like, okay, plan B. I go to another spot with the swim jig. I decided to stick with the swim jig mojo. Kept fishing the same way. Boom, I catch one. And then I'm like, I see bass busting on the surface everywhere, eating bait. So I'm like, there's a lot of fish in this area. So I threw on my big bait that I like to throw with the tungsten and the craw and the flipping hook. And like third flip, bam, I crack one. And it's like a 3.5 pounder. I thought it was only 3, but it ended up being a 3.5 pounder. And at that point, my dad's calling me saying, hey, I got this gas. You need to come get it. So I stopped fishing, went and got the gas, brought it to my buddy. I came back, the spot had died off. And that's not an excuse or anything, but it just the way it shook out. And I tell you, the rest of the day I spent on that lake trying to make it happen. And I did not catch another fish in that lake for the rest of the day. So with 2 hours left to go, the wind really picked up. I decided to go try some other lakes where I had some other spots, but I never caught anything big there. And I stopped at Gallagher Lake, nothing. And then in the back of my mind, I remembered a really good spot of mine on Baseline Lake. And I knew the wind was pounding it. And usually if you get a windy day, pounding a shoreline or pounding a piece of structure, sometimes the bass really like the wind. And that day I pulled up to my spot. There was good grass all around it. First flip with a drop shot. Bam, I catch my third fish, and then I just proceeded to catch about 10 fish. In the last hour and 15 minutes, I got my limit really fast, called up, and it was just it was a relief. I mean, I made an adjustment. I said in my mind that this spot should be good. I went there, it was good, and I salvaged a day. I was right there in the mix with everybody else with almost 9.5 pounds. 11.5 pounds ended up winning. Everybody else was bunched up at 9 and 10. You know, and I was right there, and it felt really good.
That's
Sorry,
awesome.
I'm rambling.
No,
that's a long day.
No, that's awesome because, you know, we're talking about the mental game, and
mental game can kill you.
Mental game can take you right out of it, and it looks like you battled. Like you said, it was an 8-hour tournament, so you battled that, and you went. You know, you changed it in the last hour and a half. It sounds like you basically rocked it.
Yeah, I caught a lot of fish really fast. And I never lost it. I never lost control. I never got angry. I never started to say, oh, this is over with. The whole time I was believing that I was going to make it happen, especially when I remember, because on that chain of lakes, I got a million spots. And I just remembered this one area that I did good on probably 8 years ago. I haven't fished it since. I need to fish it more. And
right.
I went back to it, and I said, hey, the wind's going to be pounding this area. And sure enough, they were there. And I always had a belief that whole day I was going to figure it out. And I did. I wish I would have figured it out earlier. But, hey, like I said, I salvaged the day. It worked out. I was really, really pleased. So now, we're going into this Tuesday on Woodland Lake in Brighton. And I'm hoping to keep that same positive mental attitude.
And one of the things Mike has an issue with is he tends to overthink. Have you ever overthought a lake?
Oh, yeah. All the time. You start thinking, oh, they just sprayed weed killer. Should I do this or do that? Oh, it's a bright sunny day. They're going to be on the docks. I should go run docks. or, so and so is going to go to this spot. So what am I going to do? There's a million different variables, and that's funny you say that, because my tournament partner for Tuesday, Eric, just called me. And I was telling him, I'm like, man, we got to try not to overthink this and just let's keep it simple, let's just go fishing.
Yeah, that's just it. How many times you heard me on the archery range shooting, and I'll say something. I'll be having a bad couple of shots, and I'll just say to myself, and Danny can hear me, keep it simple. Go back to the basics.
Yep. And I'll even tell him, I said, don't overthink it. Yeah. Because I learned this from bowling, and when you start, it gets mental in your head, you're done.
Yep.
So you go back to the basics and you just throw the ball.
Well, the night I blew up, that was the thing, is I started reefing on my sights and changing. I was adjusting like every end. I was adjusting, and we got halfway through him, and I mean, I was done. I was ready to throw my bow against the wall, and he's like, you're overthinking it. So I went back to a basic setup, and I picked up, and got respectable somewhat on the second half.
So it sounds like in fishing that you're doing the same thing, and it's like you said, all the variables, weed killer, your partner, so it sounds like a mental game is a lot of this, and that goes back to what you said about whether it be fishing, hunting, the gym, anything you do. It's that mental game.
Raising your kids, you got to keep it simple, because when they're little, you can't overthink that. You just got to keep it simple. Stick with the basics, and you'll be just fine.
Absolutely.
One thing I try to do that really helps me, it's hard to remember, but I'll just say, let's make this next cast perfect. And I'll just focus on, I'll pick a spot on the water and say, I'm going to put it right there. And it kind of helps get my mind off anything else, and it kind of gets me back in the game. And then I'll make that cast. It's like, all right, let's make this next cast perfect. And it just kind of helps change gears and get me back engaged, and so I'm not checking out. Right. That's one thing I do.
So you talk about a tournament on Tuesday. Do you have any more this week?
I do. My wife's just loving it to death. I normally don't fish 2 weeknights in a row, let alone 2 weeks in a row doing that. But I do have a tournament on Tuesday on Woodland Lake, and then I'm subbing for my buddy Alec. His partner can't make it up on Fenton Lake up there by you guys. And I'm going to be subbing on the lake, on Fenton Lake, which has been a nemesis for me. I know there's big fish in that lake.
That's a tough lake to fish.
Yeah, it is. I've never had good luck there. I've been the 4-fish wonder there. I've never brought back a limit on Fenton. And but hey, that'll be another low stress situation where I'm just there to sub and try to help him out and put some fish in his live well. So that should be a fun night.
What time you guys get done with that one?
That one, it's 6 to 9, and they will be there and doing the weigh-in. Usually the boats will be there right at 9. They usually start the weigh-in 9:10, 9:15.
Okay.
What day is that?
Thursday.
Where do they do the weigh-ins at?
Right at the boat launch.
The public boat launch?
Yep.
Okay.
The big one. Yep.
Maybe Danny and I might show up over there and be your cheering crowd.
Sure, do it. Yeah, I'd love that.
That'd be cool. Catch him when he's coming in with a boatload of fish.
Can we stand from the shore and shoot arrows at the boat?
He probably wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Can we be the disgruntled landowner?
Yeah, we'll start yelling at you from the dock.
Yeah, bring your paintball gun.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah, that's where we'll be.
Well, I tell you what, before we let you go, you heard us talking about what we did this week. If you got any questions, and matter of fact, I got a question for you about archery.
Sure. Yeah.
Here on our page, we've got a question tonight. If you had to shoot a 20-degree angle, up or down, what's your preference? Which way would you choose?
Am I practicing or making a shot?
No, you're hunting. You're hunting, and you got a choice. Either you're going to shoot uphill or downhill.
And you got a buck of a lifetime.
And it's about 20 degrees. 20-degree angle.
I'm going to have to say downhill because I've never been in a position to shoot uphill. So I'll go downhill. It seems easier.
It is. A lot easier. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
At least I think so in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, the geometry maybe would be in your favor too.
It's easier to hold. It's easier to hold steady for me.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But right now the polls is actually 75% people downhill, but there are 25% of people said that they want to shoot. They would rather shoot uphill.
They go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So
right ahead.
How do they determine the winner of that challenge? How do they score that?
There is no there. That's one of the best things about this is they just call it a challenge.
Oh, okay.
And there's no scoring involved. They've got raffles and stuff. but there's no scoring. They give you a scorecard because basically they were asked, can we have scorecards? So they said, well, we better print something up. And basically you just go off with your group and you just do whatever you want.
Yep.
That's nice.
It's just a fun challenge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like Danny and I said, we kept score, but we never even compared scorecards.
Right.
It was more just for your own mental game of where you were at, and at the end of the day, the main question, and everybody ask it, is like, well, how did you shoot? And you say, oh, okay, or bad or whatever. They say, well, how many arrows did you lose? That was the score.
Right.
So, and actually, we beat Chris.
We did.
Yeah, see, you guys only lost one arrow, right?
Yeah,
one
right.
apiece.
We lost one apiece.
Yeah.
And so it was.
Great.
I did have one blunder. I was pulling back my bow to shoot, and I think, like you said, I think I came too close to my chest, and I hit the release, and basically I shot the arrow straight up. So I thought I lost it. So we take our shots. I go down by the target, which I think was another 45, 50-yarder, and I look to the right, and it was standing like 15 feet from us, straight in the ground. I'm like, there it is.
Yeah, so at
Just
least
went up and came down.
Yeah, you were right on target on your draw.
I was on target.
Yeah.
But it was a challenge, and when they say challenge, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
They were receiving some complaints, but come on, it's a challenge. It's not an easy walk through 3D shoot. It's one of those things. They make it challenge because they call it a challenge.
Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta go in with, like you said, you gotta go in with a good attitude and have fun doing it. So
I want to give a shout out to Homeland Security.
Yeah, they were there, had a booth.
They had a booth there,
Really?
and they were there talking with people. The crowd, this crowd was obviously from young to old. Majority was on the younger side. They were I heard them talking with some people, and they were getting some people checking into careers in Homeland Security. But I got to give them credit for what they do and being in an event like that.
Yeah, actually, I walked up and told them thanks for what they do for us.
Yeah, and we even got a free token, get out of jail free card.
Yeah. You get in trouble and you try to pass that chip off and see how far it gets you. I don't think it'll go too far.
Right.
Oh,
so, other than that, I think we sound like all three of us had a good weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great weekend. Yep.
Great weekend. It sounds like somebody's going to be out on the water. We'll try to get there Thursday night, and we'll see how.
If we can get over there, we'll try to go live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be
We'll
fun.
go live, and you're right in our back door,
you.
so we'll be his cheering section coming off the water.
The directors are good buddies of mine, and they'll get a kick out of that if you guys show up and start filming us.
I'll make doggone sure that Danny is dressed properly.
If we're going to be close to water, I got to be in my bathing suit.
Yeah.
Oh, there
okay.
we go.
Yeah, you do that. Yeah.
Rick and Bob will love it.
Right?
All right. I tell you what, we're going to wrap up the podcast portion of the show here right now, folks. So, thanks for joining us this week. And as always, Danny, the show is going to be posted, the live stream portion, Wednesday.
Live stream will be re-aired Wednesday night on YouTube. Obviously, we got the one right now. Podcast comes out later tonight or tomorrow on your feed.
Yep.
And remember, share or like us. Get us out there.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Anything out there. Any questions for any three of us, you can always Facebook us. Ask away.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for us here on the podcast this week, folks. Y'all take care. We'll see you again next week. And don't forget, you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Scentlock Technologies,
Scent Blocker,
Rambo Bikes,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Limb Walker Game Calls,
Stanislawski Releases,
Copper John Sights,
Easy Cut Outdoor Products,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Sense Hunting Sense,
X-Stand Tree Stands,
Spot Shooters,
Gut Check Indicators,
and Packermax Cultipackers.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe until next week on the Up North Journal.